This time, we're going to call the special meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Let the record reflect that it's Thursday, May 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Mr. Chairman, here speaking, I ask everyone joining us remotely, please use your phones. Thank you. For those wishing to follow along with the PowerPoint, you are encouraged to access the meeting through Tinley Park Television on YouTube. It is my understanding that some of our Plan Commission members and staff have checked in on the conference line, and we have some members here in the council chambers as well, so we can begin our meeting. Please note, throughout the meeting, we expect to have other individuals joining us via phone pertaining to specific agenda items. Since some of our members and petitioners will be attending remotely, I will quickly review our remote meeting protocol. This open meeting of the Village of Tinley Park is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07 issued on March 16, 2020, which suspends the Open Meetings Act provisions relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act, OMA, requires public bodies to allow for public comment. Therefore, this meeting will include public comment via the established protocol for both remote and in-person attendance. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Please just remember to wait until I address you, and please keep your phones muted until I do address you, and when you unmute, please identify who is speaking. Thank you. At this time, if our Commission Secretary could please take the roll call.
Commissioner Manny.
Present.
Commissioner West. Commissioner Lascuto.
Present.
Commissioner Aitchison. Commissioner Gatto. Commissioner Vick.
Present.
Commissioner Gaskill.
Present.
Commissioner Gray.
Present. Okay, we have a quorum. We'll move to the minutes. I just want to state that tonight is a special meeting outside our regularly scheduled meetings. As we just had a meeting last week, staff did not have an opportunity to complete the minutes of the May 20th meeting for tonight's approval. Therefore, we'll review the meetings of that May 20th meeting on June 3rd, and tonight's meeting's minutes will be reviewed on June 17th. So with that said, we will move on to the first item on the agenda this evening, which is the approval of the multi-tenant remodel at 17111 to 17119 LaGrange Road. Please note there's an error in the agenda. This is not a public hearing. There was a workshop that was held on May 6, 2021. There's only a site plan and architectural approval for this project. Therefore, a public hearing is not required. This item is up for a vote this evening. With that said, Dan, please proceed with your presentation at this time on item 1.
Thanks, Chairman. As you said, we kind of went through in a lot of detail in the workshop. This is the approval time for you guys, though, so I will go through it, just kind of hit the main points and kind of what changed. This project, along with the following item, is the same developer. Similar projects, both dealing with a Starbucks drive-through, obviously, with this one being an existing site. So this is an image of the existing site. So the site is in Park Hills Town Center, which is anchored by Luminati's, Frankie's. Was previously Tribe's Ale House in there. There's a CVS pharmacy outlet. This is at LaGrange Road and 171st Street. This was constructed in 2006, 2007, for the most part for the shopping center. And then with this bank building built in 2006. So this was built for American Chartered Bank, and it was American Chartered until 2016. was converted to be financial when they were bought, when American Chartered was bought out, and then became Fifth Third after that, after another buyout. So it's kind of run through the gamut for banks. It's been primarily just used as a bank office for Fifth Third since the pandemic hit, and they closed, once they consolidated with MB Financial, they closed a bunch of locations, but they'll still kind of use them as bank office space while they try and find future users. As part of the history on this lot, in 2015, the property was actually shrank, and most notably, the front parking lot was shrank when there was a taking through IDOT right away when LaGrange Road was expanded. And that resulted in a reduction of 4 parking stalls on the site, but also resulted in some other changes in additional parking that was added to the site. The subject property is zoned B3 PUD, and it's in that Park Hills Center planned unit development. So you can see this building pretty closely ties in with the architecture of that overall shopping center there. To the south is also zone B3, and it's the Great Escape, and there's also another B3 vacant outlot parcel there, as well as townhomes to the southeast of it. And this is the original approved site plan, and if you can kind of see that there's kind of a middle parking area, and that was removed, and kind of that parking lot consolidated to just have 2 rows of parking that's out there now. And that's what happened in 2015 with the right-of-way taking. The big comment coming up for this one in terms of the site plan and circulation, so obviously they're adding a drive-through, and that's where kind of most of our focus was, trying to make sure that works correctly out there, and then moving the dumpster enclosure. So they made some changes here, kind of retrofitted that existing bank property, but generally still functions as a drive-through out there in the same kind of circulation you get with that drive-through. The main comment kind of coming out of it was that from a site plan perspective was just maybe if they could fit a bike rack in there. It's not required by code, but I think they have homes being developed to the north of this in Orland Park, and generally trying to be bike friendly. We requested that, and they obliged and added one into the front of this, and into the front of the center. They also, in addition to the drive-through, have added a patio by the Starbucks as well for some outdoor dining. So they resolved that by adding the bike rack location. The landscaping here is pretty substantially getting upgraded in terms of the front landscaping, foundational landscaping. They removed 1 tree with the addition of that patio kind of into the end island area, or I believe they actually removed 2 trees in this, but they replaced those trees kind of on the back side of the building, and then also add in some additional landscaping there in the front. Architecturally, this was kind of the main point coming out of the Plan Commission meeting, was this front facade. This is their proposed kind of front facade there, so that front on the right side of the building was kind of all ethos, and they were proposing that to kind of give it a different look, a more commercial look, and then allow easier installation of signage. Also, with it being unknown if it's going to be 1 tenant or 2 tenants, that was really to help them kind of put signage up there and give it a different look than the rest of the building that Starbucks is in. We worked with them, and the petitioner went through and tried to put a brick border around that now. So now you can kind of see on both the left and right sides of that front facade, there's kind of a brick border, and then they added a little bit around it as well that they'll maintain there. So they kind of reduce that, frame it a little bit better than just having an entirely ethos area up there. And then on the south side, they're listed in the Plan Commission's recommendation and staff's as well, which is really, they had taken that south elevation and there was an ethos area there as well, but it looked kind of awkward and abruptly kind of ended into brick. But they're gonna leave that as it is now, which I think is a good idea and kind of keeps it looking at a high quality as it is now. So I think this was a good compromise to get us to a usable building and helps them, again, transition from a single-use bank to a multi-tenant commercial building. Signage, there's a ground sign that they're gonna be replacing out there pretty much as it is. Coming out of the meeting too, there was a preview menu board that are typical of Starbucks locations that we wanted to add into this to kind of preemptively approve it. Because this isn't a public hearing, we couldn't really add it to this request. We are with the next one, but they would have to come back if they want to add the preview menu board here. Or we can discuss if that's something maybe we want to take on in terms of a code change. But that will need to come back in some form. So that's it for this site. Existing site, obviously single-use bank being converted to a Starbucks and multi-tenant property. So I'll give it back to you, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Dan, for that presentation. At this time, we'll go to our commissioners for any comments or discussion for staff on this matter. And I'll go to Commissioner Lusciuto on the phone. Commissioner Lusciuto, are you there?
Yes, this is Commissioner Lusciuto. I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Vick, any comments?
No, not really. I think everything looks good. I like the changes to this, to that front part there. It looks a lot better, I think, the way it sits now. So otherwise, nothing else.
Okay, excellent. Commissioner Manning?
Yeah, the same thing, no comments, just, I'd like to see how about, did they add a brick border around, because, signage mounting, looks good.
Excellent. Commissioner Gaskell?
No comment.
Okay. And I concur with what some of the commissioner already said, that I think the brick facade and minimizing that ethos looks very good. And kudos to adding the bike rack so quickly. We do appreciate that. And it looks like a very good business, a very good location. So that's all I have for my comments. Does the petitioner have anything to present or add on this item?
For the record, David Sasson on behalf of the petitioner and the attorney for the project. We're very happy to be able to work out the ethos issue in a way that was going to work for our tenants. With changing the building from a one-tenant user to multi-tenant, we know that the coming tenants are going to want some identity, and we think this is a great compromise between the staff and our clients. So we're happy to proceed, excited, and thank you very much for all the time that the staff's taken with us to come here today with this kind of a resolution.
Okay. And we appreciate the spirit of working with the staff to come to a mutually agreeable conclusion. So thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion on this item from the commission, may I have a motion at this time?
Okay, I make a motion to grant the petitioner Christopher Alexis on behalf of 9561 West 171st Tinley Park LLC, doing business as Equity, site plan and architectural approval to make site and facade changes on the existing former bank building to be converted to a multi-tenant commercial building with a Starbucks coffee drive-through at 17111 through 17119 LaGrange Road, formerly 9561 171st Street, in the B3 PUD Neighborhood Shopping Park Hills Town Center PUD zoning district. In accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, subject to the following conditions. 1. Any changes in drive-through or parking demand from what was presented will require a new traffic drive-through analysis and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient. And number 2, site plan approval is subject to final engineering plan review and approval.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Lusciuto. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Manning, seconded by Commissioner Lusciuto. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Manning,
Yes.
Commissioner Lusciuto,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion the motion is carried. In my understanding, Paula, just for clarity, this ends here, right? This, you can file permits, is that correct, Dan?
Yep.
There's no other steps, so.
Yep, with no zoning and nothing else zoning go to the board, they could get a permit tomorrow for this
Okay.
application.
Excellent, just so the petitioner is clear on that.
It's just the site.
With that, we will move on to the second item on tonight's agenda, which is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Beckley LLC, the contract purchaser owner, a map amendment to rezone the subject properties from R1, single-family residential, to a B1, neighborhood shopping zoning district. Additionally, the petitioner is requesting a special use for a planned unit development, PUD, with exceptions from the zoning ordinance on both the subject site and neighboring 7-Eleven site currently under construction. The request will permit a multi-tenant building with a Starbucks drive-through to be constructed at the properties located at 17120 to 17126 Harlem Avenue. Architect/site plan and final plat approval will also be considered at this meeting. May I have a motion to open the public hearing at this time?
This is Commissioner Gaskell. I moved open.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
It's Commissioner Vick, a second.
Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak after the staff's presentation. And I do want to just add that I did receive a certificate of publication in the newspaper for this public hearing. So Dan, with that, please proceed with your presentation.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, and this one's very similar in terms of the concept, the same developer here with a multi-tenant building with a Starbucks drive-through in it. This one obviously a little more substantial of a request because these were previously, this is going where there was previously single-family homes and there's rezoning requests as well as the overarching PUD request that will go over this development and the neighboring 7-Eleven development that's not only currently under construction, getting completed pretty quickly out there. So the existing site here is two interior lots on the western side of Harlem Avenue. And this is just south of the corner of 171st and Harlem where that 7-Eleven is being developed. And is currently under construction. These lots are zoned R1 single family residential and outlined there in the red. And then in the orange is where the 7-Eleven is being developed. And that 7-Eleven project was approved in 2020, and when they did that one, they demolished not only the home that was on the southernmost portion of that site. As part of that approval, they were working with the owner at the time that owned all 4 of those lots, and they demoed the 2 homes that were on this lot as well, just kind of out of goodwill, knowing they were kind of interested in moving forward, and when they demoed one, they could just demo all 3 at the same time. So they're back before you here today now with a contract on that property and to do a mixed-use, or not mixed-use, multi-tenant commercial building there, which is kind of Equity's bread and butter. Outside of doing 7-Elevens, this is kind of what they do, are these kind of outlet strip center type buildings. This area of Harlem is unique in our village because this was originally developed in the 50s and 60s with single family homes and developed with the subdivision that goes to the west. But that's back when Harlem was a 2-lane road and there wasn't much traffic out here, so obviously it's changed quite a bit. There's heavy traffic, there's a lot of commercial development here, and it's attractive to commercial tenants, not so attractive to residential uses now to get in and out of their sites. So the comprehensive plan does call this out as a commercial commercial office use in the 2000 comprehensive plan. So even in 2000, they were thinking this will get converted. So this has gone it'll pretty much be done at this point, besides one single-family home that remains out there. And they've been converted to either be zoned B4 or B1, which are kind of the B1 being our lowest density traditional business zoning district. And the B4 zoning district is our office and service use district, so kind of our two lowest intensity business districts. And that's really there because of the single family homes that still exist to the west there. So instead of B3 uses, which are usually a little more intensive, parking, noise, kind of external negative effects that can come from there in the B3 district. So they're looking here, it would be a 7,422 square foot new building, a little over 7,000 square feet in leasable space. This building would be Starbucks and then up to 3 other additional tenants. And again, could be 1, could be 3. Once they kind of get the approvals in Starbucks, that is usually when they start to generate real interest in signing other leases. So kind of once it's approved, then they'll gauge the interest out there. Starbucks would take that and the southernmost unit that's shown on this with the drive-through, and that would be 2,202 square feet of space there, and then that other 5,000 again just leased to any use that would be permitted in the B1 district, as well as a few other uses they've added into the PUD that they feel don't create any external negative effects and that could be useful here in kind of a unique situation where it's B1, but it's a heavy commercial corridor. The site plan obviously includes the building. You get the counterclockwise drive-through rotation here, and some interconnection with the 7-Eleven site to the north. There's a number of exceptions here in terms of the lot size, because again, developed for residential and not commercial, so the lot size, the lot width are all exceptions that are covered by the PUD. And access to this site is primarily through that curb cut on Harlem Avenue. It'll be a right-in, right-out with kind of a raised pork chop there to make sure people are actually doing that right-in, right-out. But it has that cross connection to the 7-Eleven site that gives access, another access to Harlem, access onto 171st Street, and even cross access to the bank that's up next to 7-Eleven as well. So you kind of create that whole corner there where you can access it through the actual sites. Again, counterclockwise there with stacking. Callaway did a traffic analysis here and really worked with Starbucks. Starbucks has some pretty strict standards when they're moving into a site to make sure they're not going on the roadways, that they have enough stacking that works for them. Because if it doesn't, it hurts their business. And I think everyone's aware Starbucks is pretty busy. So that Callaway report was submitted and concluded that there's enough drive-through stacking here, and that any stacking would happen internal to the site. If it went beyond their kind of dedicated lane here, it wouldn't spill onto any roadways. So our traffic consultant also took a look at that and concluded the same thing, that the report was sufficient and correct. So there is a public sidewalk going in with this project, so we could include that got extended with the 7-Eleven site from the bank property, and then it'll bring it down here through this site. So adding sidewalks is what we always like to see and be pedestrian friendly. And I think this is good because then the neighboring community can kind of walk here safely. Extend there. Just like the other site, there was the bike rack condition. I didn't call it out in here, but in the site plans that were sent to you guys, there is an added bike rack there by the Starbucks patio on the south side of this. So they did add the bike rack, which was a comment on this as well. Landscaping wise, our landscape code's a little tough to implement. Sometimes it really kind of pictures a new commercial development, I think sometimes. So when we get infill developments or auto-oriented uses like the gas stations, it really doesn't, it's tough to make it apply. But it does give us a guide to kind of say, here's the type of landscaping and can you kind of meet the intent of it. So they really focus here on that perimeter landscaping, making sure there's trees and kind of a sufficient buffer surrounding the site. And really a big focus on that westernmost property line, which the focus has really been on. There's neighboring residential properties there, but we want to make sure that cars, sounds, anything that could come from this property are properly buffered. So they've done landscaping, trees, and with staff's recommendation, they agreed to move up to spruce or evergreen trees at that location. So it gives it a year-round buffer. And so it's not just summer and spring, fall and winter, it's buffering that as well. They'll be continuing the fence that runs all the way from the bank and it runs through 7-Eleven now, and it'll continue here. So it's an 8-foot tall PVC fence that'll all look uniform across those developments, and then also there help block any light or anything that could affect the properties to the west of this. So that was really our focus, was to beef up that western property line as much as we could to help buffer anything with this transition from what was single-family homes to now what's a commercial user. And we did do a full landscape analysis like we always do. There are obviously some deficiencies in there, but again, they tried to do the best with what they could, and I think it's really, it ties in pretty well to what 7-Eleven did as well. So you're gonna have kind of a uniform planting scheme out there, uniform buffer widths, things like that. It'll really kind of blend together, which is the benefit of having a developer work on two developments right next to each other, kind of one right after the other. Architecturally, it's a fairly modern design here with a stone base of the building, to kind of call out the Starbucks as their primary anchor tenant, and with the drive-through, it'll have a grayish-black brick, which is up here if you guys want to see it, and then the rest of it will be more of a brown-toned brick. Two darker tones, a little different because you normally, I guess, don't see two different tones in a smaller one, but I think they blended together well here. They also offset that Starbucks facade slightly from the rest of the building. So, but again, mostly brick there with the building, and the parapets, and the building has really been designed pretty well there to screen any of the rooftop units that are up there. And they've wrapped, again, the windows wrap around the north elevation, and then on the south elevation is where you have the drive-through window. Signage-wise here, so this is kind of where the PUD, one of the places where the PUD comes into play outside of the cross-access. They want to have some shared signage because of the cross-access, because these are kind of going to be designed and constructed around the same time, be a similar development. The signage kind of works as well to where they want to share that. So you'll have the new sign for the Starbucks location. We'll have one for the 7-Eleven site and some access and vice versa. To add that on to the gas station sign, they did have a minor request for a 1-foot height exception there to allow an 11-foot sign instead of a 10-foot sign. So fairly minor, and it's really there to kind of make that sign work with all the information that they're trying to fit on a gas station sign. So. Parking wise, there is a minor exception here, but I think we've gone over it enough times with this commission that, you know, our zoning code isn't perfect, especially when it comes to parking. I don't think any town's is when it comes to parking minimums, and it's tough. It was in 1978 is when it was written, so obviously some things have changed since then. We really try and use it more as a guide here. And it really comes back to the petitioner who's going to be the future owner. Who's going to have to lease this property. And sometimes you do need to kind of monitor what the tenant's parking is. And those tenants also want to know what kind of parking they have as well. So they're going to be, it's a minor request here, but I think they're confident they can make this work. Lighting wise, they're going to meet all of our lighting standards, so they're at the property lines, especially to the west of this. There's no off-site light spillage, so that is, it goes down to 0-foot candles on the western property line, and we purposefully designed this to kind of have any lights that might be visible to the west, basically make sure they're buffered by sufficient landscaping. So we try and limit the amount of lights that are in the back on the west side of this property, and then limit and anytime they are or could be visible, make sure there's a tree or something that can kind of help block any visibility of that light pole. From a use standpoint, there are a few uses that they're requesting that aren't typically allowed in that B1 zoning district, which is what they're requesting to rezone this to. So there's a couple that are in the B3 zoning district, automotive part sales, which doesn't include repairs or installation, just part sales, office supply and equipment sales, personal service establishments, which could be salon, massage, tax attorney, things like that that are just kind of personal services. And then the one drive-through facility, which they're requesting here for Starbucks on the property. So they do have a list of other exceptions related to the zoning code, but are, again, related to kind of the unique nature of this lot. So outside of the rezoning, the PUD that they're requesting over these properties, then you also have the the site plan. They'll be doing the final plan of subdivision, which really just consolidates these lots, places utility easements on the property, and then cross access between the properties as well on that plan of subdivision are covered. So that's it for my staff report, and I'll give it back to you.
Okay, Dan, thank you. This time I'll ask any of the commission members if they have any comments or discussion on this item. I'll begin with Commissioner Gaskell. Any comments?
Just looks to be a good job.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Manning.
No comments.
Commissioner Vick.
No, I don't think really anything too crazy going on here with the development. I mean, it makes the changes that they have, like the parking changes, you know, especially due to the limited space, being that this was a residential property and stuff, you know, and it makes sense to change the zoning over to that as well. It's, you know, something that's been thought about for a while, so that'll all definitely make sense here. The landscape plan, I think, looks good, and having a year-round kind of buffer with evergreen type stuff, things like that would definitely, you know, help out the whole time, you know, with that. So I think what staff has done here and what developers have and stuff, it looks good. It'll be a good addition over there.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Vick. Commissioner Lusciuto, any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Vick and the staff with regards to, you know, that's such a busy intersection. It really isn't suited for residential anymore. It would be more suited for commercial purpose. And again, also with Commissioner Vick, with the landscaping and buffering the western boundary to protect affect the residential properties to the west. I do like the fact that they're extending the sidewalks on Harlem Avenue to give pedestrians, ease of access to those properties. And along with the congestion, maybe with these additional Starbucks going up, it'll ease some of the congestion at 159th and Harlem. That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bushudo. I too echo some of the comments that Commissioner Vic Bushudo said. That is a nice buffer on that west side, and I like the fact that it's continued from the bank to the gas station with the perennial, the spruce and the evergreens. I think that's very good and protects the residents to the west there. I also don't have a problem with the menu board sign. I know that's something that we've discussed about before. There's similar signs at the existing McDonald's along Harlem, not too far away. And as staff has alluded to, there may be a time to revisit the code regarding these types of drive-through signs. So I'm totally okay with that. I too like the addition of the bike rack and the sidewalk, and that should invite some people that are non-vehicular customers. So you should still get the business, but maybe not the congestion, hopefully. And overall, the appearance looks good. I do appreciate you guys bringing the brick sample. A picture is good, but having the actual sample in hand really shows. I think the appearance of the building looks very stark, very good. So with that, I have no more comments. So at this time, I'll invite the petitioner back up. If you wish to present anything on commission, I'll have to swear you in, sir. Or if you just say, do you swear to affirm that the evidence that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. We're really, based on this very detailed presentation and all the work that we've done prior to the workshop, we're really here at this point to answer any questions from the public or from the board. We're happy to get this project going. I did the 7-Eleven, and with me is Ivan Nakoff, who's a principal from Vequity, who just endured 2 hours of traffic to get here. So
wow.
nice. But from day one, this was always one project. We agreed with the staff to remove those two houses without even really being approved by this board. So this is kind of a relief too. But we felt that they should go, and staff recommended that we do that. So it's all worked out, and we're so happy we could just integrate phase 2 with phase 1 and make it work. So we're very excited to be there and hopefully get this one going very quickly.
Absolutely. And as staff said, at least it showed, because of the the same owner, you see that consistency of the project. So it's shaping up very nice.
Thank you.
And Ivan, thanks for fighting all that pre-Memorial Day traffic to be here. It's probably, timing is everything, as I'm sure you're aware. At this time, I will ask if there's any public in attendance or online, or if anything was submitted previously for public comment today.
We didn't have anything submitted or anyone calling in. So.
Okay, so seeing that there's none, we'll move on.
I think
Commissioner,
we
any
need
more
David to
discussion on
sign
this
it,
item?
right?
Okay.
Does David need to sign the,
Yeah, if you
The
didn't
sheet.
sign it.
Oh, yes. You can sign your name down, sir, yes. So with that, hearing no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Bushudo. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Bushudo. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. If there's no further comments, Dan, can you review the draft standards of approval on these requests?
Sure. I'll keep it as a summary. For the rezoning approval, it really relates to this being a more suitable space for a commercial use compared to a residential use that it's zoned now, due to the traffic and its overall location of it. And how this relates to the neighboring zoning, which has also been commercial and transitioned to a commercial property. That basically having a orderly developed site is better than having a vacant site. And these structures that were there before the homes did remain vacant for an extended period. And this is obviously a benefit to the community that has planned for it. They have additional property tax, sales tax, employment, and overall just economic benefits to this development and the rezoning request that will allow for that. The standards for a PUD, which are kind of unique because you guys don't see these very often, but they're very similar to the special use conditions to make sure that the development really fits the community, that there's sufficient traffic, circulation, access, utilities, and that it really fits with a land use perspective with the village, which in the presentation as we covered, this is really transitioning from that residential to the commercial uses out there. And that the street system has adequate capacity as well, based on the traffic reports that were submitted to handle this development. That this is going to be developed in a single phase, so we don't, with some of the PUDs request additional documents or the information on the phasing, so this will be developed in one phase and just completed within our typical code requirements. So that's a summary of those conditions, again, listed on the PowerPoint as well as on our staff report that will be part of the minutes as well.
Okay. Thanks for reviewing the draft standards of approval. So at this time, we have 4 motions for this item. Is there a motion regarding the rezoning?
This is Commissioner Vick. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Christopher Alikis on behalf of 17118 South Harlem Tinley Park LLC, doing business as Vequity, a rezoning of the properties located at 17120 to 17126 Harlem Avenue from their existing R1 single-family residential zoning district to the B1 neighborhood shopping zoning district, and adopt the findings of fact submitted by the applicant and as proposed in the May 27, 2021 staff report.
Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Gasko, I second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vick, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Lescudo,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Motion is carried. May I have a second motion regarding the special use for a planned unit development?
This is Commissioner Lasciuto. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, Christopher Alikis, on behalf of 17118 South Harlem Tinley Park LLC, doing business as Vequity, for a planned unit development for the properties located at 17100 Harlem Avenue and 17120 through 17126 Harlem Avenue in the B1 neighborhood shopping zoning district in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein, following the list of exceptions listed, and adopt findings of facts as proposed by and in the May 27, 2021 staff report.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Lasciuto, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Lescudo,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. At this time, may I have a third motion regarding the final plat?
This is Commissioner Gasko. I make a motion to recommend the village board grant approval to the petitioner, Christopher Alikis, on behalf of 17118 South Harlem Avenue, Tinley Park, doing business as Vequity, final plat of subdivision approval for Southland's second consolidation in accordance with the final plat submitted and listed herein, subject to conditions that the final plat approval is subject to final engineering plan approval by the village engineer.
Do we hear a second?
This is Commissioner Vick. I second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. May I have a roll call, Secretary?
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Loscuto,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Commission, may I have the last motion for this project regarding the site plan?
This is Commissioner Manning. I make a motion to grant the petition to Christopher Lucas on behalf of 17118 South Harlem, Tinley Park LLC, doing business as Equity, site plan and architectural approval to construct a 7,422 square foot multi-tenant commercial building with a Starbucks drive-through at 17120 through 17126 Harlem Avenue in the B1 PUD Neighborhood Shopping Zoning District in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein and subject to the following conditions. 1. The proposed fence shall be a minimum of 8 feet in height and match the existing fence on the adjacent bank and 7-Eleven properties in height, color, and style. Number 2, site plan approval is subject to the approval of the rezoning and the special use for a PUD by the village board. And number 3, site plan approval is subject to final engineering plan review and approval.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Lashida. I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Manning, seconded by Commissioner Bushudo. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Loscuto,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So this will be reviewed by the village board at the June 1st meeting. So we appreciate your time here today, both of you gentlemen, and you can get with staff on how to attend. If you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, we will be there. Just one comment, I learned this week of the retirement of Paula Ulrich, and I've known Paula for probably 30 years. Every village she's been in, she left it a little bit better. That's what we try and do as petitioners. She's certainly done that in Frankfurt, where I worked with her, in Homer Glen, where my partner George Arnold worked with her, and now again. So we just wish her well in her retirement, and thank you.
That's so nice, thank you.
Thank you
It's
very
been a
much.
pleasure to work with.
Words, yes.
That's scary to
You're
think
beating
you-
us to it, but we'll slowly build up to that point.
There's cake over there.
Have a good one.
It's weird to see people I see.
Well, I didn't think you could know somebody for 30 years.
Oh, wait a
Paula.
minute, I worked with your father, remember?
Yes. With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is a workshop and public hearing to consider recommending the village board grant Joseph Colucci on behalf of Union Bar and Grill, the tenant, a variation to reduce the total number of parking stalls by 7 for a total of 155 parking stalls instead of the minimum required 188 stalls at 17821 80th Avenue in the junction at 80th Avenue Shopping Center. The approval of the variation and accompanying site plan approval request will allow for the construction of an approximately 900 square feet outdoor dining patio. We will start the workshop portion of the meeting first. So Dan, could you please make your presentation for the workshop?
Thanks, Chairman. With the other items as well, with this one, I'll just note that our staff reports are made part of the minutes, so that way Kathy doesn't have to write everything I say. And so those are available online as well. For this one, we have a combined workshop public hearing. We like to do that if we can on things that are a little bit simpler, if it's not a new development. Combining them is always preferred, especially here we have a business that's open and the weather's nice outside, so this is to add a patio, and obviously they're wanting to get that done as quickly as they can so their guests can sit outside and they can have a little bit more space to eat, as well as COVID's still a thing, so I think there's still a preference for some people to eat out there. So they're doing a temporary patio, which we allow in our town right now. I think they're going to put that out there. And then this is really for the permanent patio they're looking to install in that same place. So here's the existing site. That's at 17821 80th Avenue. It's on 80th Avenue in the junction at 80th Avenue shopping center, just north of the 80th Avenue train station. The shopping center is 29,000 square feet of commercial space in there, again, just north of the train station. This was developed in 1997 and constructed in 1998. It's got a pretty nice architectural appearance, materials, and just kind of high quality appearance that's meant to kind of tie in with the train station over there as well with the lights and the overall look of the shopping center. So in here is Union Bar and Grill, which opened in 2020. 2020. And then at Anytime Fitness, adjacent to it, opened in 2020 as well. And they're in the old San Fratello's pizza and banquet facility that's over there. The Anytime Fitness is in a 6,000 square foot space, so that's kind of the anchor tenant. That's the biggest tenant in there. And then they have some other tenants like a Chinese restaurant, therapists, travel agents, kind of your typical B1 neighborhood shopping center, convenience shopping center. This is zoned B1, which is again our neighborhood shopping, kind of our lowest intensity shopping that kind of limits some auto-oriented uses. The one exception to that being the bank on the corner, which they do allow those in the B1 because it's kind of a low intensity auto-related use when you have those drive-throughs. So this is also located in the Urban Design Overlay District, and that's really related to having more pedestrian friendly, pushing buildings closer to the street, having more walkability. It's hard to apply most of those principles retroactively to suburban commercial shopping centers, but we do, when we look at these, try and bring that in as much as possible. And this project does kind of do that by their proposed patio out there, kind of activating the space a little bit more, having people be outside and not all contained within the buildings. The surrounding area to the north has townhomes that are zoned R5 PD. To the south of this, again, is the train station, which is zoned ORI, but is a civic use, obviously, there. To the west of this, on the other side of 80th Avenue is zoned R3, which is single-family homes. There. So the proposed plan here is really, again, just to add a patio to the exterior of the site. It's going to be plugged into where there's parking stalls in front of the building out there now. It would be around a 900 square foot patio, and then there would be a pergola over the main kind of part of that patio to give it a nice appearance from the street, as well as also provide some shade for the customers. The patio location on this is kind of pushed south, and then on the north side of it, you'll have an ADA accessible space and accessible ramp as well to get onto the sidewalk in front of their building. And they pushed this to the south and that ADA space to the north because it kind of hides that patio behind the building from the residential townhomes that are to the north of this. So that's kind of where they want to make sure it's not visible to those neighbors as much as they can by kind of hiding it behind the building. They'll also be adding some planters there's a dumpster enclosure essentially on the back of the building that they can add some planters as well to really make sure it not only buffers views for them to the patio, but also just the parking lot, the shopping center in general. The patio is going into the parking area, but that'll be raised up to grade level of the sidewalk that's adjacent to the building. And then they'll have fencing surrounding the building that'll be 4.5 foot high aluminum open style fencing that you see around most of our patios. And that's just an example of a pergola, but they don't have specific plans at this time for the look, but that's an example of what they're what they're looking with there. Our open items are just to review that overall site plan where they're looking to locate it, as well as our typical condition of engineering approval on this. They are doing some obviously grading work when they put this in, and we want to make sure both accessibility and stormwater are properly managed when they do this. The kind of big work outside of the site plan approval to put the patio in, this requires a variation from our parking requirements. As I stated on the last time, are kind of used as a guide, a little imprecise and a little outdated. So the current code requirements based on the shopping center size is about 188 parking stalls. The approved site plan has 162, and then there's 160 stalls out there because 2 of the stalls have been converted to really allow for pedestrian access to their site, so people aren't walking between cars. So 2 of those stalls were removed. The plan here with the patio would then propose 155 stalls for that overall shopping center. And that's based on our zoning codes requirements of 6.5 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet. So they're requesting for a 33 stall variation on the parking requirements. There is a cross parking easement with the bank outlet, and then the petitioner did do some Friday, Saturday night parking counts out here, just due to the request being fairly minor. And then also COVID has made doing parking counts. I know Tailaway hasn't done them in a long time. It's just a unique, it's hard to gauge what's normal with COVID. Right now, actually, there's a lot of people eating out, so it's even beyond kind of what you normally have. But then there's other businesses that haven't recovered. So they did do some counts out there, though, just themselves on their kind of peak hours on a Friday, Saturday night, and counted a little over 70 parking stalls within the shopping center that were available. We didn't do, again, any very specific counts, but just from noticing on weekday nights and on weekend nights when staff's been around there, it doesn't look like there's any large parking or traffic issue on the site. So worst comes to worst on this site, if they're just booming and they're packed, the most adjacent parking area is the wide open public metro parking lot. So that's available after 10:30 a.m. Open to the public for someone to park out there up until I think 2 or 3 a.m. So somebody could go park there and walk over if they have some event or Anytime Fitness has an event and it's really packed out there. Because of our concern with these are really if there's not enough parking, where do people park? And if it's adjacent to let's say a neighborhood or something, we'd be concerned, are people going to park on the street in front of people's homes? And that's not a situation we want. This one, the closest thing, again, a large open parking lot, so kind of convenient there. And that's really it. So it's the site plan approval before you guys today, and then the parking variation for the reduction in the parking stalls.
Okay, excellent, Dan. This time, I'm going to ask the commission for any comments or discussion on any of the open items. I'll begin with Commissioner Manning. Any comments?
I think my only comment regarding the parking efficiency, I think since we have the metro station there, I think they could use it if it was like Dan has mentioned, which was a neighborhood without that, then I think that would be a large issue for me. Because like I said, someone could be parking in front of your house, and then you come home and it's like, where do I park, right? But because of the metro station there, and that's I think that's fine, and that's all my comments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Manning. Commissioner Vick.
Yeah, just on the parking side of it here, I really don't see a big problem with that, because I go past that quite a bit, different times, different days and stuff, and even on nights when they have the car shows and stuff going on out there, parking's not an issue in that lot. It really hasn't been. Yeah, you might walk a little farther to get to there, but there's still parking available in there. So I really don't think it'll be a huge, a big problem where we see it in neighborhoods and, just, to the north there or anything like that. I don't think that'll be a really big issue. I like the design of it. I think it'll be, a nice little addition for them, and then of course, it'll look good with, like I said, with the pergola and that stuff. That'll, I think, definitely make it look nice out there as well.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Gaskell.
I have no comment.
Okay. Commissioner Lushudo, any comments?
Yeah, I like the site plan, and then, agreeing with staff, they made a good point about the fact that the Metro lot is there in case they ever did have a big event where you needed additional parking. You do have that large lot that's right there, and it's just a short walk. So I don't see parking being an issue either with that parking lot.
Okay, excellent. I have just a few comments that are just echoes of what some of the commissioners have already said. I think, first off, the outdoor patio, that's a plus in this day and age. Since 2020, it's shown it to be an asset, so I think it's smart to expand out that way. I do agree with what some of the commissioners said already about the metro station. No problem with that. You already have some open tenants, but currently there is no parking issue, and if there is, you have that massive overflow, so it makes sense to me. And then I open on two, if you get final engineering and building department on board with the final design, I think you'd be good to go. But I do like the layout. I like it being to the west. I think it's properly screened. The pergola and the fence, they look nice. So those are all my comments for this workshop. At this time, does the petitioner wish to introduce themselves or have anything they would like to present to the commission on this workshop portion of this item?
No, the only thing I have to do is drop off for Dan. I have the email from the landlord that was asked for.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
And sir, are you Joe then?
I'm Joe, yes.
Okay.
Joe, I'm Joe.
Thank you for being here in person.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate it.
appreciate you.
So it seems like we've talked about any information. So if there's no other questions, with the workshop complete, may I have a motion to open the public hearing at this time?
Commissioner Gaskell, I so move.
Okay, do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Lushudo, I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Lushudo. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. I do want to acknowledge that I did receive confirmation, the certificate of publication, that this, for this public hearing was published in the newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. So Dan, if you can begin your presentation. If necessary, because you just gave...
Yes, I think I'm good with the combined workshop public hearing here.
Okay.
So I don't have anything else to add to what we already discussed. So.
Okay. So I ask the commissioners, yes, Commissioner.
We need a motion to open the public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I...
I did.
Yeah, and
Oh, good, okay.
yeah, so hearing nobody in, no dissension, we moved it. We opened it.
Sorry about that.
No, quite all right.
Nothing additional, no.
Instead of asking for ayes, you're totally correct. If one person, we usually do the ayes.
that's all.
But since we have the one person on the phone, if nobody says a nay, we continue, but no worries. Any other comments or discussion for the staff, from the commissioners? Okay. Does the petitioner have anything they would like to present or add on this item?
No, thank you.
Joe, can I ask you one question? Are you a Miami Hurricanes fan?
I am, yes.
Okay, I could tell by the symbol, but I'm an Irish fan. They're passionate fan bases, so I appreciate that. With that, is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? And did you guys get anything, any call-ins?
No, we have no comments. No.
Okay. So hearing none, we will move on, and there's no other further discussion. So since there's no further discussion or questions, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make that motion. Commissioner Gaskell.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vick, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I will ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. The public hearing is closed. Again, here's another chance for any further comments. Hearing no further comments, staff, can you review the draft standards for variation at this time?
Sure, so we're just going over the kind of 3 statute required standards. And the first one is that it can't yield a reasonable return by this, if used by just meeting the code. And so this is really that 7 spaces is kind of more efficient and economical use of the space. And that this kind of helps with the prolonged occupancy of those tenant spaces. The second standard being that this is a unique circumstance, and this is a unique property with a tenant mix that provides unique treatment in regards to parking requirements, and then a reduction of 7 spaces, again, kind of helps with the occupancy and success of that center with the additional patio. The property owner, the third one being that if the variation is granted, it doesn't change the character of the locality. And again, this being an existing multi-tenant shopping center, the patio and the pergola should make the space better and with the reduction in the parking for the variation. So those are the 3 statute required standards. We have other ones, obviously, that are recommended that are on the board.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Dan, for that review. We have 2 motions for this project. May I have a motion for the site plan?
This is Commissioner Gaskill. I make a motion to grant petitioner Joseph Calucci on behalf of the Union Bar and Grill site plan approval to construct an outdoor dining patio at 17821 80th Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Shopping Zoning District in accordance with the plan submitted and subject to the following conditions. The proposed accessible parking stall and access aisle shall be constructed, striped, and signed in accordance with the ADA and Illinois Accessibility Code requirements. Number 2, site plan approval is subject to approval of the parking variation by the village board. And number 3, site plan approval is subject to the engineering and building department permit review and approval of final plans, including any grade or drainage changes.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Vick, a second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Vick. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Loscuto,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. At this time, I have a second motion regarding the variation.
This is Commissioner Vick. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a variation to the petitioner Joseph Calucci on behalf of Union Bar and Grill from section 8.A.10, number of parking spaces required of the zoning code, to permit 155 parking stalls where a minimum of 188 stalls are required at the property located at 17821 80th Avenue, the junction at 80th Avenue Shopping Center in the B1 Neighborhood Shopping Zoning District, in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by the village staff in the May 27, 2021 staff report.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vick, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Secretary, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manny,
Commissioner Manny.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend.
just a roll
Oh,
call.
roll call, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Loscuto,
Yes.
Commissioner Vick,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes. Okay. The motion is carried. So, Mr. Calucci, this will be reviewed by the village board at the June 1st meeting. Thank you for your attendance tonight, and feel free to attend that meeting as well, which I believe is next Tuesday. So,
Okay.
thank you for coming out tonight. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
See you soon.
Okay, moving on to our fourth and last item we have this evening is a workshop to consider recommending the village board grant Petros Dramonis on behalf of 163rd and Harlem LLC, a special use permit for a substantial deviation from the Park Place Plan Unit Development and a plat of subdivision / plat of vacation for their 24.2 acre property located at 16300 Harlem Avenue, former Kmart property. The proposed development is phase 2 of a 3-phase project. Phase 2 includes the construction of an 88,608 square feet Pete's Fresh Market, PFM, store, 51,831 square feet of inline retail tenant space north of the grocery store, plus or minus 12,400 square feet expansion of the warehouse, an expansion of the existing loading dock on the south side of the warehouse building, and the addition of a new dock area south of the warehouse addition. This review will include site and architectural plan review as well. So Paula, please make your presentation at this time.
Yes, as the chairman said, we have 4 issues we're going to look at this workshop: the site and architectural approval, special use with a substantial deviation, and then the plat approval. This slide shows the overall parcels that are owned by Pete's at this time, with the old Kmart building at the south end of the property. An interesting background to the property in that the original PUD for Park Place Plan PUD, Planned Unit Development, it originally contemplated a 9-hole golf course at the south end. It had the residential, not quite how it developed now, but it certainly contemplated a mix of uses between residential and commercial. And obviously so, because of the significance of Harlem Avenue as being one of our major commercial corridors. So it had a PUD approved back in '89, had the R1 zoning on it as well as the B3 zoning. And then over time, as with most PUDs of this magnitude, you start to see some amendments as the market changes and developers come along. So the residential areas, the duplex units that back right up to this area, those were constructed, and then in 1993, the Aldi that we know there was developed. And just prior to that, to the north, there was a Pace warehouse store. Some of you might remember. Now that's the Sam's. So as it developed, you started to see a confirmation that there was a lot of commercial uses, and it sort of commanded the frontage on Harlem Avenue. When the Kmart was constructed in '95, along with that came some fairly significant buffering potentials, the solid fence that runs along the west perimeter. And I think one of the nicest things is that southern berm that's south of the old Kmart building that's now got very mature evergreen material, so it offers a nice barrier in that area. So there's 24.2 acres in total. This project that Pete's is undertaking will be done in phases. We all looked at that back in September of 2020, where we had phase 1, and that was where the contemplation and the substantial deviation for the use of the warehouse, because that wasn't an allowed use in the B3. So that was approved, went through here, through Plan Commission and then the board. And then now what we have in front of us this evening is looking at phase 2 of the project, which constitutes the Pete's Fresh Market. And then phase 3 at some point will come when we start to see those outlots develop. With the phase 1 that was approved back in September 2020, it was given preliminary approval of the overall substantial deviation that included the overnight storage of 5 delivery trucks at that time, and then certain conditions of approval for opening the store. And what's happened since that time, I've been impressed with some of the improvements that Pete's has done. Here's a picture of, it's hard to remember what it looked like before, because the painting that they did looked like it should always have been there. And so I think what I liked, besides a nice clean appearance, it sort of diminished the impact of it as what everybody could recognize as a Kmart store. And it certainly became compatible with what you see out there with the Sam's Club and the grays of the rest of the buildings. And as we progress into the architecture of Pete's, you'll see that it was purposeful that they painted these colors to be a companion piece to their store at some point. So the zoning in the area, this is the Park Place PUD as a B3 PUD, and there's also the Park Center Plaza, another PUD just north of that. Behind them to the west, we have the duplexes that are zoned R6 across the street on Harlem. At the corner of 163rd, you have B4, which is the office, and there's a medical use. And then north of that, I think most of you were on the commission when we looked at the Brixmore plans and Tinley
Park Plan.
Tinley Park Plaza, all these names. The developer was Brixmore for that, and that was that's a B2 PUD, believe it or not. So let's first start talking about the site plan. The proposal that you all saw back in September, and this was kind of preliminary for Pete's, included the color drawing up in the left-hand corner. And what has changed since that time, if you remember, we had a public hearing at that time, and we had a resident come out, and they were concerned about the proximity of that store to their homes, which are immediately to the west. So Pete's took that under advisement, and they've actually moved the whole store, the development, to the east. And the impact of that is they now have the docks that are there are 175 feet. The projections of the docks is as close as 130. But I think what they've done, and they certainly listened to what the concerns of the residents were and tried to push that building as far away from the west property line as they could and still provide enough parking on the front of their building. So I think that was a positive change. The other thing that they did when we were looking at this back in September, there was going to be some retail wrapped around the east side of the old Kmart building, which is that dark purple area. They've since decided to bring that back in line as inline stores with the Pete's Fresh Market, certainly take advantage of the outlots, but the warehouse building, the old Kmart building, is going to be totally used for the warehouse, and there'll be some new administrative office uses on the north side. That's that 12,400 square feet that you see there. They are building onto the building, and that's kind of what Kmart had used as their outdoor garden space, and so that they will enclose that, and that will be part of the new plan. It's so different being here instead of at my kitchen table. I'm so used to having Dan advance all the slides.
It's kind of nice not doing that.
So one of the things, and I tried to make the orientation always the same, so just to familiarize yourself, the Harlem Avenue is at the top of the picture, and so north is off to the left, just so you've got yourself oriented. So the white building space, the footprint there, that's the new store. So with the parking field in the front for the customers, one of the things that they have done with the new site plan is provide safe pedestrian access, and that's all that kind of pinky color. And then crosswalks where necessary, and that's the yellow. We had the engineer and staff, we worked closely on that, because one of the things that we were concerned, and I remember hearing the commission talk about this when we had the warehouse, you need a real distinction between warehouse truck traffic and the customers for Pete's Fresh Market. And the proximity of the warehouse building to Pete's, we needed to make sure that was very clear. So we felt that was very important, and there is a really good separation of vehicles and pedestrians that were designed in this, including that middle green boulevard that focuses right on the front door of Pete's Fresh Market. So if someone bikes, Chairman, if hopefully we'll get more bikers, coming in off of Harlem Avenue, they'll come in, they'll run across the west side of those outlots, and then they have that middle opportunity, that sidewalk running right down the middle of that landscape boulevard. And then there's also safe ways to access this over at 161st Street too. So I think they did a good job of addressing staff's concerns about distinguishing between vehicular and pedestrian traffic. There's 3 points of access on their property. That's the 2 red stars and the right green star on the right. The Southern or at 163rd, that's our only full point of access. The green right star and the red star on the left, those are right in, right outs. But we also are fully aware that these most left green star or north green star at 161st, that's also a signalized intersection used by SAMs. But the entire parcel, the PUD that was the original PUD and the plats that were recorded have cross-access, cross-parking throughout this area, as you would see in most commercial developments. So there's certainly been a share access for their customers, as well as their vehicles, which they've been doing from the very beginning. So parking, my soapbox is parking is an imperfect science, and Dan talked about it a little bit as well on our antiquated parking code that he's going to work on after I leave.
And delete.
And delete it, I guess. But I think we had some good precedents in looking at parking in this area, and it's really hard. Back in the old days, everybody parked for the day after Thanksgiving, and then we're left with these seas of asphalt. One thing that they certainly have done with their landscaping, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they've broken up that sea of asphalt. But they have also really cut down on the parking, and actually they could have gone lower. I always like to trust the operator. Here you have Pete's, which I meant to mention at the very beginning. They have 17 stores that they're operating now. They're opening up a bunch of new stores in the area. They just opened one in Madison. They've got one in Orland. They've got one in New Lenox, and one other place, but I don't remember what the other place was. But they obviously know what they're doing. They've been operating these stores. They've been, it's been a pleasure to be able to ask them directly, what's your experience? Because how would it serve them not to have enough parking? So they've gone down as low as three spaces per 1,000. That would be, I think, a bit tight for us. We're not that urban. But in our code, we would have to have a 6.5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. What they're providing is 4.7, but that's what was provided across the street with Brixmore. So, we approved that, over a year ago, but it's a nice precedence for us that we know we're kind of being consistent in the way that we're looking at these parking ratios. And what they have also decided to do by moving that building away from the residents on the west side, they're providing employee parking in the rear, and that'll be parking. They have some separate 13 spaces for the warehouse, but if they had more employees for the warehouse, they can do that in the back as well. So there's a nice separation of that, which I think from an administrative point of view, I think every business owner has a difficult time keeping their employees out of their customer parking spaces. And so this way they can keep the employees in the back and their customers in the front. So the parking, and some of the numbers are up there for you. If we were to apply the zoning ordinance requirement of 6.5, they would have to provide 248 more spaces. So you can kind of imagine what that would look like on that site. That would be a lot of parking. But this is a PUD, it's not a variance, but we're going to have to consider that as an exception. So one of the open items that I'd like you to consider is identifying the parking ratio and making sure you're comfortable with that. All right, let's move on to the delivery operations. So you have sort of two delivery operations with this project. As part of this phase 2, with phase 1, they had 5 additional docks that were added to the proposal and overnight storage. With this phase 2, they are adding additional docks. That's on the south side of the old Kmart building. So they're adding 3 additional docks on the west side of the existing dock, and that's that bottom arrow. I don't have anywhere to kind of show you. So what exists there right now is in the red box. So just on the other side to the west of that is 3 additional docks. And then there's another dock being added at the end. If you look at the top there, that's the new addition on the east side of the building, and they're putting some docks on the south side of that. They will be building a 4-foot screen. I think you can see there that in blue. And then one other thing that they're doing that was new, I hadn't really heard this until we had started working on this phase 2, is they are providing some cab parking. Now, there is space for 12 cabs parking there, although I'm being told that they don't anticipate that. And there's also another 4-foot concrete screen there, because I wanted to make sure that we were protecting the views of Harlem Avenue. Although quite honestly, between the landscaping we have there that exists right now and the new landscaping that's being done and these walls, it would be, you'd have to kind of be stopped there, to stop and turn to kind of look at these cabs being parked there. Let me stay on this for just a minute. So, well, here on the, this now is Pete's Fresh Market, not the old Kmart building. So Harlem Avenue is to the top of the building. So they have, those are their recessed docks in the back. They also have the screen walls. They anticipate 5 semi-truck deliveries a day on the grocery store, and then 5 to 7 smaller trucks on that. And I did a little bit of research in terms of what the industry standards are. And so you're looking at 10 to 12 truck movements a day on the Pete's Fresh Market. And that's pretty similar to what we're seeing. I actually saw in this truck trip generation manual that you can expect as many as 14 trucks per day in suburbs. So I think there's certainly within the realm of what, you know, the standard of the industry is. And I think it's also important, this is sort of a rough sketch I did, but it's, you know, you want to get some idea of how these truck docks relate to the homes, the duplexes that are back there. And I wanted to look at it in terms of what exists for truck movement. So you can see the box is showing that we have 162 feet from the actual back of the house, I didn't take it from the property line, to where the trucks are docked, okay? And I compared that to what we see operating over at Sam's, and they're at 88 linear feet. So Pete's has moved their trucks almost double of a distance away from where the homes are now. Additionally, there is that 6 foot, is it 6 or 8 feet? It might be 8 feet. I mean, an 8 foot solid fence that's back there, but they are also adding additional landscaping. There's some existing landscaping there, but what's in the circle there is all the landscaping that will be an additional buffer, I think help to absorb any kind of noise emanating from the deliveries. And then back to the Pete's, to the warehouse, this kind of shows you the view from Harlem. And I was probably almost causing traffic accidents trying to take these pictures, but what I'm concerned about is, you know, everybody expects there to be truck deliveries when you have a business there, but I'm worried about overnight storage because we certainly want to control that. But you can see that there's some obviously existing vegetation, and the addition of their screen walls that they're going to build is going to help protect any kind of visibility from Harlem Avenue. Additionally, when you're talking about the warehouse for overnight storage, there are no homes immediately adjacent to the warehouse, to the south or even to the west, because to the west is where that detention pond is. So by code, we have 2 code references that deal with overnight storage, and so we need to make that an exception because these trucks are going to be over 8,000 pounds. They anticipate a maximum of 10 trucks is what they're committing to for overnight storage at the warehouse, and 6 cabs. So we'll want, when we get to the end of some approvals, we'll want to certainly look at that. So that's our second open issue, and that is to talk about the parking of these trucks and cabs overnight, and identify the maximum that they've agreed to, and make that an exception to our final special use. Next, I want to talk about a little bit about the turning radius, and we worked pretty closely with our engineer and their engineer Because again, we really need to make sure that we're separating pedestrian and vehicular customer traffic from the trucks. Although I think the timing is going to be such, and they can talk about that you'll probably see those trucks mainly in the early hours and somewhat different than the operating hours of Pete's. And it's hard to see on this, but you saw it in your staff report. We still have an outstanding issue on this, and they will need to, I've mentioned this to Pete's and their engineers, that our engineer is still having some concerns about the exiting movement on the very south, right in, right out access. By IDOT standards, when a truck exits, actually it's not even at the south one, it's a signalized intersection when I think about it. So when they exit at 163rd, a truck, you want to make sure that you're not coming into, it's a 2-lane southbound. They want to make sure that they're staying in the west lane southbound. And they can't make that maneuver without widening that access. So they need to work it out. I saw some emails going back and forth today, so it still hasn't been concluded, but we'll certainly want to make sure that any approvals that we give is conditioned upon final engineering. So another aspect of the site plan that we want to talk a little bit about is their outdoor sales display. They do an attractive sales display out there, and they have agreed to not display anything higher than 5 feet in height. But as their operations right now, we do have temporary outdoor sales permits, but it doesn't meet their timing. That only goes from April 15th to October 15th, and they have some Christmas displays and whatever. So we want to include that as part of this special use as an exception. So we want to mention that. They've given you some illustrations of what they are doing at other buildings. Up in the top, you'll see the exact areas that they are going to be doing that, keeping it nice, neat, and orderly, and not higher than 5 feet. So we'll want to include that as an exception to our PUD. So when we look at our site plan, that's our first approval that we'll be looking at this evening. These are standards that's in our code. The arrangement of the buildings and access and lighting and landscaping and all that, that's something that I feel has met the standards of loading areas or at the rear or the side of the SAR, that we've provided safe, efficient, and convenient movement and safe movement for pedestrians. It's a balance of green space, and the trash areas are going to be screened. And I'll talk about that in a minute with the architecture. So let's let's move on to the architecture. Sorry, let me get back up to that. So as I mentioned before, that they were looking at being compatible with the area. We have the Sam's Club in the same color tones, but they are presenting a very sort of modern, fresh, and clean approach. We did have, there's showing the compatibility with the adjacent areas. But we have massaged the architecture a bit from their original proposal. The original proposal was in the top right-hand corner, and staff felt that we needed to warm that up just a little bit, without detracting from the image that they were wanting to do, and the image and corporate branding that they have for Pete's. So the final image is as you see there, and I'll if they want to speak to the materials, but it's a very interesting material that gives that stippling pattern of the white and the dark, and it really provides some nice shadow lines for the project. So this is looking at it face on, and you can see kind of there to the right of where you have the Pete's sign. It almost looks like little modules there, but I think at the nighttime with the uplighting and during the daytime, I think you're going to see some very interesting shadows on that. And we do have building materials, but actually didn't think about bringing them down from the office. And then the inline stores are at the north end of the store. Take some of those materials, certainly keep the tone the same, keep the materials, but provides its own architecture. So that will be at the north end. There's a night view. And then I'm sure the residents are going to want to see what this is looking at the rear of the building. This is back where the employees will be parking. And you can see the landscaping, keeping that screened from the residents. And these are the materials that I call stippled. Is still a masonry component along with a metal mesh. And they do meet the ordinance requirements that, any building of this size has to have at least 25% of each facade as masonry. And they've certainly done this with their proposal. Trash enclosures, this is something, we talked about under site review, but with architecture as well. So they will be, there'll be a brick enclosure, it'll be painted black like the back of the building is as well, and totally enclosed. There's 2 areas where there'll be trash compactors, and then they are providing a screen wall for those as well. The RTUs, or the rooftop units, this is something that I still need some more information from their architect on. As they work through their interior plans, I think things are moving around still a little bit on that. But they are telling me that they're going to keep those units as far west as they can. But before we get to public hearing, I want to see a sightline study to make sure that we're not going to see those units from Harlem Avenue. So just like the site design, we have standards that we look at, that we want to make sure that they've taken care of. The building materials are in conformance. It's a cohesive building design between the warehouse, the grocery store, and the inline stores. Color, sustainable architecture. Certainly we don't want Pete's going anywhere, but it certainly could be reused for another commercial entity. Defined entryway. The roof, anything greater than 10,000 square feet, it doesn't need to have a pitched roof to it. Screening materials, we talked about that, the RT units and the trash compactors. So the only open item is to make sure that those RTUs are screened from the public. So I mentioned the warehouse is doing that 12,400 square foot addition at the east end. We did have some discussion at that. The first proposals they gave, it was just a blank wall. I wanted to see some breakup of that expanse of the wall, so they provided these clear story windows, which I think are great. And then the recessed dock that is at the south end of it, they also will have that 4-foot screening wall that I mentioned there, if you can kind of see on the right-hand side of that picture. Lighting, they're trying to stay consistent to the lighting that's out there now. They're maintaining the 25-foot height limitation. They're actually they're exceeding ordinance with the zero foot candles at the west property line. So that certainly will help keep the neighbors happy, no glare off site. So let's talk about the landscape architecture. As I mentioned, that what's in that green circle is that green median boulevard that centers on the front door of the store and helps to break up the expanse of the parking lot. They meet all ordinance requirements in terms of the size of those parking islands and their cart stalls. We've looked at all the buffer yards, making sure that they meet the intent of those. And any areas where they couldn't accommodate the number of trees or shrubs, if they were not able to meet that, we kept with the intent of the landscape ordinance by increasing the sizes of the trees. So we're up to 3.5 and 4-inch caliber trees in some of those more obvious and dominant areas. So that's going to be sort of instant landscaping, if you will, at the end. The fence that's out there now, there's some areas of that fence I was concerned about the needing repair. They did an inspection and gave us some pictures. So about 250, I think it was, 250 linear feet are needed repair, so we want to make sure that gets repaired prior to any occupancy. And so I'm recommending that we have an August 1st, 2021 repair, and I think they're probably on that already, knowing how they've handled the maintenance of the site anyway, so. Let's move on to signage. When we talked about this back in September, they noted that there was a ground-mounted sign out there already that was from Kmart. That's what's there on the top left. And they wanted permission to be able to reuse that because all the electrical was still there. We said yes. But when we started looking at it now with phase 2, we realized it exceeded our ordinance requirement, and it actually exceeded what we allowed them to do across the street. So they have agreed to reduce that down to 20 feet, so I appreciate their cooperation on that. So we're consistently applying our exceptions to PUDs. So with that, they're also looking at an overall area of 256 square feet because it was reduced, which is beyond what we allow in our code, but it's consistent to what we allowed across the street. They are asking for electronic message sign, which is allowed, but we only allow it to constitute 20% of the ground sign. They are asking for 33%. When you do the numbers, if we had it reduced down to 20%, it wouldn't even be readable. This is consistent to what they do at their other stores, and actually is proportional to the sign, so staff supports the request. But as we know, in the PUD, there will need to be exceptions for this, and so that looks at an exception of a 20-foot tall ground-mounted sign of 250 square feet in square footage, and then the 2 wall signs also, we're looking for an exception at them at 147 square feet, which again is consistent to what we've done across the street, if not less than what we've done across the street. Engineering, we've got our plat. There will be doing a plat of consolidation. They'll have to come back to do the plat of subdivision when they look at the outlots. But we just want to ensure that we protect those cross-access easements. We also have a platification on this project, which is minor, but I want to make sure that we're keeping that in front of our reviews. So when it comes time to approve the plats, we'll be approving a plat of subdivision or platification. And we'll want to make sure that all that's conditioned on final engineering approval. So in review of the outstanding items, I think most of these are straightforward, and I certainly welcome your comments on it. We want to make sure that you're comfortable with the parking ratios, the overnight parking, that the outdoor storage is fine with the conditions that we placed on them. We're going to get more information on the rooftop elements, make sure that fence gets repaired, and the exceptions to signage that I just mentioned, and that we make sure that we have final engineering conditioning on all of our approvals. So we have a public hearing scheduled for this on June 17th, and hopefully by then we'll have just a couple more items from the applicant to finish up any of these concerns.
Is it the 17th or is it the 15th?
I'm sorry?
Is it the 17th or the 15th for the public hearing?
17th. Is it the 17th?
It's the 17th.
17th. Did I say 15th? I'm sorry.
No, it's in the script wrong.
Oh, sorry. I think it's the 17th.
Want to clarify?
Okay, Paula, thanks for that presentation. Very, very detailed. At this time, I'll ask the commissioners if they have any comments or discussion for this workshop. I'll begin with Commissioner Lasciuto via phone call.
No, staff did a very thorough job with this report. I agree with all the recommendations and the conditions that they want to put on the property. So I don't have any other comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gaskell.
I have no comment.
Okay, Commissioner Vick.
Paula, can you put up the open item list again? Just overall, first of all, I think it's a great addition to there, and it looks really nice. I mean, the renderings we have right now look really good. So, I mean, I think it's a great addition to the, to everything going on, to just kind of the redevelopment of that area out there, that shopping area. Would be a great addition. On the parking side of things, I definitely don't think there's a problem there with that, and that number being applied consistently to the different shopping areas, I mean, definitely helps to justify why we could definitely do this here. Plus, you know, they know what they do business-wise as well at their other stores. So that's, yeah, definitely big thing. The storage of the trucks, I mean, with the screening that's there and additional stuff going on, I don't think that'll be a big deal at all. That turning radius coming out of that south exit there, you know, that right in, right out exit there, I would definitely be worried about that, just because it is limited use. I mean, it's limited room, you know, there's a built-up median there where if somebody was to go wide, you know, a truck was to go wide, then the car was even remotely close, there's nowhere for them to go, that kind of thing, which is, you know, I mean, I guess it's a good thing because it's dividing the two different directions. But yeah, they definitely should look at redoing that, maybe that, that cut there.
It's actually
or
at
that.
a signalized intersection, I'm sorry, that we're having trouble with. I
Oh,
said,
because it was
I
marked
did say
on,
south.
okay, because it was marked on the map as being that south, right in, right
Yeah,
out.
I need to check with the engineer to make sure I'm understanding it.
Okay.
It's one of the two. Do you know which one?
Because you said the southbound.
South.
Yeah.
Oh, it is the very south one. I
Yeah.
thought the trucks were coming around to the signalized one at
No,
162.
it's the very south one, the idea being that there's two southbound lanes on Harlem,
Mhm.
right? And the idea is that the engineer was looking for us to make sure a truck can come out and stay in the far
Right.
right lane as opposed to
Right,
using an extra swing to get
Right,
through
right.
there.
well, I feel a little better knowing it's the south one, because if they have, I think there's room to widen that to
Yeah,
make
one
it
of the
work.
comments that came today in an email was to look at some gaps in the traffic that will exist because of the signalized intersection being
Oh.
so close. As signals change and, you know, you get turning movements and red lights, we're gonna do some analysis on it to see if there's adequate gap for a truck to be able to come out. And, you know, even with that stoplight there, cars accelerating from that stoplight getting through there is not gonna be,
Okay,
you know, I don't think they'll be able to get up to speed fast enough for it to really be a dangerous situation, but we will certainly work with engineering
Okay.
to resolve that.
yeah, I actually feel better that it's the south one,
Yeah.
because it's, I think even if you had to make some changes to that, there's room to do that. There's nothing to the south of there, so, okay.
Otherwise, you know, I mean, just in general, the staff recommendations I think are really good here and fit the sign variances. We'll definitely work with that area and everything else that is being done out there, so I don't think there's really, you know, I think everything we've got here is all really good and shouldn't be too big of a deal, I don't believe, for the public hearing, so.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Vick, Commissioner Manny, any comments?
I just want to echo Commissioner Vick, he kind of said everything that I want to say, it was just like, just the architecture from my perspective it's awesome, it's going to be a beautiful building, all the materials being utilized, it's just like.
He's an architect, just so you know.
Right, so, that's from my perspective, it's just great. And then based on the staff's, recommendations, and I totally agree, especially the turning radius, we want to make sure it's safe for everybody, going there, coming from there, I'll surely be there, But I also just want to say, besides all that that I'm good with it, I just want to say, I want to applaud the petitioner to listening to the community's concerns. It's refreshing, because sometimes, when the petitioner listens, it creates a synergy, then everyone's gonna love it, but when we have conflict, it doesn't work, at least in my perspective. But something like this is just like great. So I applaud you, for you doing what you want to do, listen to the concerns, and that's what we could then, massage the plan, make it work for everybody.
For sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Manny. And I'll piggyback. I do appreciate that you guys pushed the building a little bit towards the east to accommodate the neighbors to the west. So to just piggyback on some of those kudos from Commissioner Manny, that was very good. I'd also like the safe pedestrian crosswalks that you guys put in, because that was something that was discussed. You're gonna have quite a bit of truck traffic mixed in with pedestrians going to the store, so I thought that was done well. As to open up some of the open items, open item number 1 in terms of parking, and I understand it's an imperfect science, more of an art than a science,
Mhm.
and the way people shop nowadays has changed. So I'm all right with the 40 or 4.7 spaces per 1,000 feet. I think that's okay, it's in the PUD, so I think the exception, having that exception is okay with those 665 spaces. I do have a question regarding, so the parking of trucks and cabs. And my only question is, looking at the map, you guys say you'll have 10 to 12. Paul showed in the standards it could be even up to 14. But by my math, and maybe I did too fast or whatnot, you'll have 10 trucks and 6 cabs parked, so a total of effectively 16 vehicles. So I just out of curiosity, why so many?
The way we're set up on the new front docks on the east side, that's the receiving area.
Eugene, could you come up to the,
Oh.
it just gets covered for the public better to speak into the microphone.
And please,
Say your name.
sir, identify your name and your position.
Eugene Jankovich, I'm with Pete's Market.
Okay.
So the east docks is the receiving area, so those trucks are coming into that area. That's our general receiving. Then there'll be distribution to the west of the warehouse. And then the distribution of the trucks to the other job or other stores is in the back. So we'll have station trucks there as people are stocking those trucks, getting ready for deliveries. And then you'll have your delivery, coming in on the east side.
And that makes sense for the orderly progress of work, so you're not, as you're pulling in and emptying one, then you're watching the clock to.
It also helps where we're not having as many frequent trips. So we're able to get everything staged and accounted for, and then that distribution would take place.
Okay.
And those cabs that are sitting there, only if we're getting hung up with deliveries, trucks are, in traffic or whatever, we'll have a cab on that we can put on. And those are primarily for the busier season, holidays, things like that.
Excellent. Well, another question, and you guys had mentioned the Orland Park, the Matson stores, so you probably have a good idea of traffic flow in terms of when the trucks come. So in your experience, when do you guys, I know Tinley Park has an ordinance 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., but when do you expect those trucks traffic to be coming in and going out, just generally speaking?
Our stores, we generally, all of our stores, they start receiving deliveries about 7:30 in the morning. So they'll start getting 7:30. Deliveries coming in are going to be frequent throughout the day. For Pete's Market, that's for the warehouse. For Pete's Market, those trucks, being that the warehouse is so close to us, the deliveries are from 7 to 3 through 30, right around there, and then we cut off at 4 o'clock.
Okay. Good to know. I think there were some questions before, probably last year on that, but okay, that seems, because when I saw 10 p.m., I don't know if people want to hear the beep, 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 even though you're a pretty safe distance away from the nearby neighbors.
Holiday season, sometimes we stretch it a little bit. It might be 5:30, but it's usually done by 4:30.
Okay.
I guess we can assume our store is never gonna run out of product, because we just run across. We need more bananas.
Good point. Commissioner Vick, you had a.
Yeah, just why there, so the east, the new portion there that's gonna be added on, that's just delivery, so there's not gonna be trucks sitting there all the time, basically. They're delivering, they're emptied, and they leave again.
Correct.
So even more with the screening side and what the public's gonna see, that's even,
Correct. Not to say we won't have a truck or two that'll sit there, but
Yeah.
that's what the screening is for.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Eugene.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the information.
And of course, this is a newer concept for us, this type of warehouse, so, we're gonna do our best to stick with those terms. Things might get easier, things might be a little tougher in the beginning until we get into a routine.
Okay,
But
fair
I
enough.
just want to be honest with you on that.
Okay, excellent. And, I'm a little disappointed, Paul, that you didn't bring in those samples. I like that stipple effect on the building. I would have
I
loved.
know, and I'm trying to think, do we have them back there? Did you bring them in? I've not been in the office, so.
No, I did not bring those in. I thought it was actually more visible on that, but,
You want to talk about it more?
what's that?
You want John to talk about it?
Yeah,
a
we
little more?
usually ask for them to come in, and I thought we had gotten them at one point, but, if you don't mind, before the public hearing, it would be good to have them.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want me to just send them to you?
Yeah, just send them to the office and
Okay.
they'll bring them.
Okay.
We're planning on building a house by the time we get done.
There's gonna at least be a doghouse or a.
We have a lot of building materials back there. But
You
it
can
isn't,
also pick them up if you
Building
need them
materials.
back.
But it does look very stark. I echo our resident architect, Commissioner Manny here, because it does look very, very nice. I think it'll be a very nice addition to the community, and I like the fact that it's consistent with the inline retail that's gonna be also.
our new employee also has a background in architecture.
Oh, okay, yeah, and
Isn't that nice?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Open item 5 for the rooftop units. I do agree with staff on the study for just to make sure it's screened from Harlem Avenue. It does look like there's quite a few of those rooftop units, so just to keep it properly screened. And then open item 7, I'm okay with the sign too, and I think it's consistent with what's being allowed across the street, and the 33% is totally fine. Staff had mentioned readability, and also it's proportional. So I think bottom line is the reason you have a sign is you have to be able to read it. So with that, I concur also with the final engineering approval, and that the access that Commissioner Manning and Vic mentioned, that absolutely will have to be rectified. It sounds like it maybe isn't that big of an issue as it's stated on paper, but you absolutely don't want some new truck driver trying to make a pinpoint turn, and some 18-year-old kid with his license or 16-year-old kid trying to beat the truck. Harlem Avenue is a pretty busy street, so we just want to make sure it's safe for the community. But overall, I really like the addition. I'm very excited about this. So those are my comments. As Paula mentioned, there will be a public hearing on this item on June 17th here in the village chambers here. Does the petitioner have anything else to add at this time?
Go back to the podium.
Yes. Yeah.
And before you leave, if you could sign in,
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
I'd just like to say it's been a really good pleasure to work with Paula and staff. Very helpful, little give and take, but through my history with different municipalities, this is one that's been a very smooth process.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eugene.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We try to be friendly towards.
I'll applaud you guys for that.
Thank you. We appreciate the comments. So with that, the workshop for Pete's Fresh Market is ended. We'll move on to the good of the order. So staff, do you have any comments from the good of the order? I know we have a staff departure and a staff addition.
Yeah, we're going to bring you through a roller coaster of emotions right now. So we have Lori, who's our new associate planner here. So we're all pretty excited to have her. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or give a quick back. She's got an architecture background, right? And she's pursuing her master's right now, finishing up her last class for urban planning at UIC. But if you want to give a little.
So, as you said, I am new here, just a few days in here with the village of Tinley Park, and I'm excited to be here. And I have background in architecture planning, and I've worked with a couple other municipalities in the past, and have some private sector experience before going into planning. So I'm just excited to be here. Thank you.
Good deal. Well, welcome aboard, Lori. It's good to have you as part of the team.
So you guys will be getting emails and everything else from her now, and I'm glad to have somebody because, in all honesty, architecture's not my strong suit, and we relied a lot on Paula for that. So now we're going to be going to Lori, and she's already got architecture assignment. So we're throwing a lot at her really quick, and she keeps coming back, so that's good. Because with Paula leaving now, it's there's going to be a lot on our plate. So and it's really been pretty busy right now. On that note, I want to Paula's retiring or mostly retiring, so she's still being kept on as a planning consultant, and so she's not completely leaving us. You still may hear her voice once in a while on a phone call. She'll come on kind of special projects and kind of keep some continuation of projects going forward that she's worked on to help us out a little bit. But for the most part, her day-to-day hours are going to be over. So I just personally, I want to say thank you to Paula. I've started my internship in Homewood when I was still in school in my undergrad, and it was kind of a unique situation there, a small staff, and it really she let me kind of touch a lot of different things, get a lot of experience, and then I was on my way flying off, doing my planning thing, and I got a phone call one day, what did you think about Tinley Park? I'm like, well, I was born and raised there.
Which I didn't know.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, that's going to work out really well. So it brought me back here, and she's been a great mentor through the whole process. So from the moment I met her till now, and especially here where I think, with both me and Kimberly coming in at the same time, both being new, not knowing what was kind of going on here and process and everything else. She had kind of steered the ship by herself for long enough. But then she had,
So glad you came.
And we're going to come here, but she did such a good job. So I really just want to say thank you for everything, and I know we're going to stay in contact anyway. So you've really been a good mentor to me, and I think you've done a great job for the Village of Tinley Park. So they always say, like, when you're a president, you're a chairman, you're in charge of something, you always just want to make sure you leave it better than you found it, and I think you've definitely done that here. So
Thank you.
say thank you. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If I could just say a few words, I feel like I've been saying goodbye now for about a week, and it's I don't cry at least anymore. I cried at the board meeting, and that was a mess. But I had a nice luncheon today, and Kimberly was there, and it was nice, and it's just I got to tell you, we'll get to this point at one point, and it's I just feel incredibly blessed that it's happening the way that it is, and that I'm retiring from here. I mean, Tinley Park has been wonderful to me, and I very, very much appreciate it. Even during this COVID time, it's been a blessing to be working for Tinley. And unlike other places, and I've worked with Dan before, I've worked in a lot of places, and as you heard from Dave before, I've met a lot of developers, and we're all it kind of circulates in the south suburbs. You kind of see the same engineers, and I've worked with the architecture firm before, and I have to say to the young folks, what goes around does come around, and so to keep your nose clean and keep your head up. But if you love what you're doing, it doesn't matter. I absolutely love what I do, and that's what made it really hard to leave. And having this way to kind of slow down gradually. Retirement's scary. I don't know how you guys feel, but I was not looking forward to retiring and wondered how I would do it. But now I'm really excited about doing it. And it's all because of the transition that Tinley Park allowed me to do. And so I'm very, very thankful about it. But I kind of wanted to say, I was sitting here thinking, this is my last Plan Commission meeting. And these guys can say, they're not always very much fun. Especially when you look out there and there's all angry residents, or you move to a high school because you have a very contentious meeting. So I started to think, what portion of my life have I spent in public meetings? And maybe I should be keeping track. But I want to give you a couple of numbers that I came up with. So I've been working at least 38 years in the public sector. I had some private. So I'm just going to count public meetings. And it's varied because when you're young and you're new and just a new planner, you're only doing maybe 2 meetings a month. But when I was village manager, you're doing 10 meetings a month. So I trust my math. I'm not a good mathematician, but trust my math. So I came up with about 2,736 meetings. Then I had to take out some vacations, which honestly there weren't a lot, 2 pregnancies, so I had some time off there. So I did the math on that. I had originally 8,208 hours spent in meetings, but I reduced it because of the time off. So I came up with 8,083 hours, which translates to 336 days. And I actually thought it was gonna be more. I was kind of disappointed. I thought I really, but that's almost a year of my life I've spent in meetings. So I don't want to make this one any longer. But thank you very much, because, and I had a nice talk with you, Garrett, before the meeting. I mean, when you have good commissioners that do their work like you guys do, you read the reports, you come prepared, that makes our job easier. So you're in great hands, and hope you won't be strangers. You can get to me by Facebook or phone number, but thank you.
And Paula, you're very humble, because from the get-go, like 4+ years ago when I was part of the commission, and same with Commissioner Manning and Vic and some others, Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Gatto, you set us up with success each and every meeting with these notes. And I know you were burning the midnight oil when it was just you and Stephanie in the beginning. And then you would say, well, we're looking at people, and yeah, there was a person I used to have contact with in terms of Kimberly, and you pulled good people in. So a lot of the success the commission has had has been directly because of you, whether you doing the work directly or you pulling in good staff members like Dan, Kimberly, and now Lori. And so, as some of the people alluded, that you leave it better than you found it. And but I appreciate everything you've done for us, everything you've done for Tinley Park, and the way you handle yourself. You're very professional. And I don't know if I could work 8,000 hours, 8,080 hours in a public meeting for almost a year of your life in public meetings. So that's a lot of dedication. And I often say there's two things you can't pay people to do. You can't pay people to care or excel. That comes from within. So from the Tinley Park Plan Commission, thank you for caring, and thank you for doing a great job.
Wow.
And you will be missed.
Thank you very, very much. We have cake.
Yeah, I see it wasn't cracked open.
You guys have got cake. So you have anything else good for the order?
No,
Nope.
I think we're good with that.
Okay.
Okay. So we can get to the cake quicker. I'm going to ask if staff, were there any public comments submitted or members of the public present wishing to speak today?
There was not.
Okay. Recognizing there's not, we will move then. If there's nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Lasciuto, so moved.
I heard Commissioner Lasciuto, motion made by Commissioner Lasciuto, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I'll take a voice vote. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned at 9:07 p.m. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.